Madam Chairman, ethics.
Thank you very
Conflict
much.
of interest reminder per General Statute 138A-15E. Board members are reminded that it is our duty to avoid conflict of interest and the appearance of conflict of interest as we handle the work of this board. Does any member of the board know of any conflicts of interest or any appearance of conflict of interest with respect to any matters coming before us at this meeting? If so, please state them for the record. If during the course of the meeting you become aware of an actual or apparent conflict of interest, please bring the matter to the attention of the chair. It would then be your duty to abstain from participating in discussion on the matter and from voting on the matter.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
I have none.
You have no.
I have none.
Okay. Can you please do a review of the agenda to make sure all items are presented as needed? No. Okay, so we have no sign-ups for public comment. Is there anyone here who wishes to make a public comment?
Madam Chairman, if I may, I think we probably just need to jump down to student government and then maybe go through the director's report as all the other stuff. Either they're not here. Is anybody here speaking for Richard or deal with the game? Okay. And the approval of the minutes, we can't pass that. So.
Okay, so the Booster Club report. Would you like to give us a student government report? Thank you.
And I apologize for my own purpose. Can you identify yourself?
My name is Tara LePage. It's nice to see you all again. So we recently completed a Hurricane Florence recovery initiative. We did a book drive for the whole school to replace the library for Dillard Academy Charter School. Due to unforeseen circumstances, our field trip has been postponed, but we will be doing our best to bring those books to them within the next couple of weeks. As far as December goes, there's a short time frame between the beginning of December and when our break begins, so we may just team up with the National Honor Society and do a group project for the betterment of the school.
Thank you very much, Tara. So,
She can cut nutrition. That's probably anything we need to vote on is probably.
As far as the director's report goes, starting piloting a new system, you should see in your packets a single-page handout that's double-sided that essentially has all of my remarks so that we can sort of expedite that process. If there's anything you'd like for me to report on a monthly basis, I slid it behind your packet. It's its own little piece of paper I put in there this evening. So we will start with our good news and news unless you'd like for us to wait until everyone's present to see that.
No, I was not here.
We can go ahead and show it. So let's go ahead and show good news and news volume or episode 2. I don't know what we're calling this, but this will be for the month of November.
Character parades, kindness assemblies, and harvest festivals. Oh wow!
And also we're working on our course selections for the next school year. Now for Bridge Design Challenge.
Good morning, this is Ms. Cummings, the primary school counselor. This month, we've been working on building positive school climate. And what that means is we're looking for those students who display respectful attitudes, they're kind and they're caring, not only to their classmates, but to their teachers as well. So what are you doing to promote a positive climate?
Hi, my name is Lisa Roycroft, and I'm the second grade teacher assistant. Today we're doing STEM projects, and one example is a boat. They're going to be building the boat with aluminum foil and carrying Skittles, and we're going to see which one carries the most Skittles.
Try different ones and see if it changes it even more. But you recognize that you did all four.
Once it's half or it's even. So that means half teaching forces even. If we would have checked this out and it would be 3, then it would be even if we're going on multiples.
Hi, I'm Richard Lynch, president of the New Star School Athletic Football Club. We're here cooking Boston butts this morning in order to raise funds for our athletic program.
I'm only on a fit in a crock pot, so you probably have to either cut it in half. You could half the time in the crock pot, or you could bake it in the oven at like.
Oh, the microwave.
Good news at news.
Let me ask you a question. Are they on, uploaded to YouTube? Are they uploaded to YouTube? Can they be
Yes.
placed,
What
are
we
they
do
on
is
our
we-
website?
we
I mean, not our
post
website,
them-
but our,
We post them the day of the board meeting, that way it's sort of released at the same time, so Brad's already posted it to our YouTube channel. But we can get you.
but it's
we'll
not- is it
send
on
you
the
an email with
LinkedIn? Can you, somebody can put the link to LinkedIn?
Yes,
Not
yes.
LinkedIn, excuse me, to Facebook, thank you.
Yes. We can
Okay,
do
I
that.
just think we need
Absolutely.
to get that out. I mean, stuff like that is wonderful, great, and then it just, as many eyes can see it. So,
Glad you like it. And if you didn't know the characters that some of our kindergarten teachers were in that character parade, if you've heard the Baby Shark song, they were all of the sharks. If you haven't, I would advise you not to look it up because it'll be stuck in your head for a while.
well, I just want to, I want to form a complaint also. I was not aware of the Boston butt sale. I did not get that memo, and then all of a sudden that day, y'all are posting these photographs of these things being cooked, and I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. Anyway, I want to have a formal complaint.
We will share that with the committee, sir. As you go through the rest of the report, I don't know that I need to necessarily call any particular attention to the first several items. Do you know that we have a recommendation for you to consider in closed session tonight regarding the senior academy English position? All other vacancies are actively in the interview process. For 2018-19, just where we are, our current school calendar, we started off with 1,077 hours in our calendar. The state requires 1,025. We have used a total of 26 hours due to school cancellations, which is matches up with 4 school days. So we still have 26 hours remaining in our calendar before we would have to consider makeup days. For 1920 calendar, we are working with our school improvement team to get a formal proposal to you for consideration by January. So we'll try to get that to you in the month of December to review prior to the January meeting, so that you'll have that information and can share any questions that you have. As Ms. LePage noted when she was reviewing the comments, she's like, don't we already do all of that? And the short answer is yes, but we just wanted to make sure that we're looking to make sure that we have sufficient time, not only just to meet the minimum standard, but to really make sure we're allotting enough time for our teachers and for our students to acquire all of the learning goals that they have each year. We want to make sure that we continue to be very specific with how we leverage our teacher workdays and professional workdays. And of course, we want to continue in the history that we have over the last several years of making sure that first semester completes in December and doesn't carry over into January. Just a note about the remaining celebration dates on the schedule. We did have to cancel today's, but we're going to have one in January and one in April. We'll get those dates updated on the website as well. And then I did want to take a time to talk a little bit about PLUS. As you'll notice, unfortunately, Dr. Silver could not join us, and she does express her regrets. She was attacked by some food poisoning over the weekend, and she's recovering. But as far as PLUS, they did meet today, so this is about the most up-to-date we have on where the team is with their work on the writing process. As a reminder, the original charge to the PLUS leadership team was to develop a formal assessment plan that would correspond to the competencies that the board had approved. When the team got together and started doing their work and rolling up their sleeves, they realized that, yes, we want to get there, but we feel like we've got some strong work to do with writing as a good base and foundation for all of that work. And so at this point, they have already submitted for approval to the school improvement team both a formal writing process as well as writing rubrics. Those have been approved, and so they're moving forward with training in January. We will work with the PLUS team to get you access to view those approved formats so that you can look at those before the training begins in January. There are 4 forms of writing that students are asked to master as they're going through their educational process. I know of 2, informative and argumentative. If I'm looking to my team, the other 2.
Explanatory and narrative.
Explanatory and narrative. The group targeted informative and argumentative is the first 2 to develop, so explanatory and narrative will be the next 2. And those should be developed early January, February timeframe. At the same time, they're now going to go back to looking at the data, performance data, not only that they had access to at the beginning of the school year, but that's been accruing since the school year started. Our benchmark data, any of our, we've heard of M-Class, it's a reading assessment for our younger students. The 3rd graders have taken their beginning of grade test already, so we have that data in. And to start working on figuring out what's going to be the right assessment tools to use moving forward and figure out if there's any areas like writing that still need to be addressed foundationally before we develop assessments. The good news is that the assessments, that the writing rubrics that they've created for the writing samples do align very nicely with our communicate effectively to a variety of audiences through written and spoken language competency. So while we thought we were taking a left-hand turn for a little bit, we feel like we're putting one of those legs right underneath the foundation of PLUS. At this time, I'm going to give each of our academy leaders an opportunity to give a report on some things they've been doing with their staff to build and strengthen instructional processes on campus.
Before that, so the rubric is assessing what assignment?
2 different types of writing, informative and argumentative. So when students write an informative paper, they will use this particular rubric.
Where is the assignment? Which grade?
Oh, so that's what they're developing in the spring. Because they just met today, so I'm not sure that everything has been shared and released. And I see Ms. Wilson in the audience as well as one of the team members. I believe they're going to work with the team in the training process with all staff to start working on writing in general to make sure that there's opportunities for everyone to write in all disciplines. And then once they do that, they'll start to target which way will be used for the assessment plan.
And so will the writing assignment be common?
Yeah. Eventually it will be common, but right now we want to get that foundation of writing up in all areas so students are having exposure to writing in every discipline. So that,
I mean, you can do that through a common writing assignment.
well, we know we've got work to do with the students to get their writing skills up as well. It's a both and. We don't want to pick just one area to say that that's where the single assessment for the assessment plan is going to take place. We want to start by making sure all students are writing the same across all grade levels and all disciplines, and not writing the same, but being taught the same writing process so that we can get that framework in place, because right now each teacher sort of uses their own acronyms, or they might use their own tools that they've picked up along the way, and it's confusing for students as they promote through the grades. At that point, though, I don't have you identified at all yet what grade levels you think might be in the final assessment plan where we would say this will be a common assessment that we're pulling in.
So are you creating this common writing assessment K through 12, and how exactly is that common for kindergarten to 12th grade teacher?
Common writing process.
Yeah.
We're starting with the common writing process, that everyone goes through a certain series of steps. What those look like in each age group will be different.
You do that in kindergarten and the same thing you do in 5th grade?
Yes.
Yes.
The standards for writing spiral in complexity from K-12, but they're all assessing the same areas and topics of writing instruction and writing technique. Therefore, the rubrics just get more complex in the same areas that we'll be focusing our instruction on. So a kindergartner writing an informational piece of text should have the same areas of focus as a 12th grader should have, but obviously the complexity is deeper, therefore the rubric gets more challenging as the students progress through the grades.
So not only do you have 4 different rubrics, then you have rubrics for each grade level.
And they are able to be molded and modified to make sure that they fit the assignments that the teachers are giving them. So
The assignments are uniform.
not always.
So if you want to assess across grade and you don't have a common assignment, is that a little bit more, is that easier to have a common assignment to ensure the uniformity when it's not existing, as Susan's saying?
Yeah, I think we're talking about, as we serve 2 purposes. So one would be to make sure that we're strengthening the writing skills of the students and using a common framework for assessing that, so that one teacher's version of writing assessment isn't different from another teacher's version of writing assessment. We're looking for the same processes and the depth of
Right, but
assessment.
a common
And
assignment
then-
does that.
Right, and then when we get to the common assignment, we know that we're not going to do it necessarily across all 13 grades. We have talked about that in the past, that perhaps for some elements it might be in all 13 grades, and all kindergartners will do a particular writing assignment, excuse me, all the way up through 12th grade, and that'll become part of their portfolio. I think writing might be one area where there probably is a specific common assessment across each grade. However, that work is still part of what's being developed in terms of the formal assessment plan, is how frequently do we need to do those check-ins to put into the overall school's evaluation of how we're progressing.
Yeah, I'm good on all that. I was just wondering, in all of this, are you creating common assignments?
Ultimately, that will be what happens as a result.
We will have writing prompts that will address each of the genres of writing. So the kindergartners, 1st, 2nd, 3rd graders will write a prompt that will address an informational piece of text, and they'll write to that prompt. So yes, that will be a common assessment. They'll do another piece of writing, again, mid-year as a check-in with a prompt similar but varied and different. So yes, we need to be able to see that the instruction that we're providing in the classroom is helping students grow as writers, and the only way to do that is to benchmark them and follow that progress. Right now, we aren't to that point. We need to introduce this to teachers, and the teachers that are sitting around the plus table right now are really excited to do that. And I think that is step 1B of this plan, is to start writing the prompts that are going to be our benchmark prompts.
And the plus team is doing that?
The plus team will be doing that, yes.
Ms. Sandora, if you'd like to go ahead and share a few updates about what you're doing with your teams in the primary academy.
Sorry. Okay. Good evening. There we go. Okay. Good evening. So in the primary academy right now, we're doing a lot of different things to start to align our instruction. One of the things that we're doing looking forward is we're going to be starting conversations looking into making competency-based grading a practice we use in K2. The goal is to have a half-day work session where K2 teachers get together, look at the math and reading standards, and break those standards down into specific skills. So that way we can start to look at making a competency-based report card, K2. In addition, we also did benchmark testing with Fidelity in math, grades 1 through 4. this past quarter and in 3rd and 4th grade in ELA, but this time we took the benchmark data and then we analyzed our data as teams and used it to drive our instruction. Areas we were strong, areas we needed to grow, and areas where we could target specific groups of students that need extra assistance.
So is the competency-based, is this a phase-in because it's going to be K through 12?
Yes, so generally when you're doing standards or competency-based grading, you start with your lowest grades and then you build up from there. So K2 is going to be our target population to start.
And are we doing any kind of training for parents? Because I know they're ready to have a flat-out mutiny in Johnston County schools, and they're rolling it out, and parents have no idea what, they don't know what to do with.
Absolutely. So in my experience with standards-based grading, we had the same issue. We rolled it out, we didn't provide a parent information session night, and we had issues. So once we have a clear-cut plan on what our competency-based grading system would look like, a parent night would be essential in order to explain the rating system to parents. I think the biggest thing that you have to work around with competency-based is that the average goes away and you're looking at performance with specific skills in a subject area. So you're no longer looking for that 95 or 90, or you may have that still there in the upper grades, but the lower grades, you don't really have that, and you're looking more at targeted skill instruction and where my child is falling.
So is it possible that we start sending out some information on what competency-based, because I think it's always so hard that we think one parent night is really going to help everybody grasp this massive new concept. It's nothing, you know, they're just struggling so much in understanding where's the A, where's the B, what is all these different kind of ratings. So we might just want to do some lead-in by sending them some data, some information, some research, you know, not anything long, but just some snapshots of things so they can start absorbing and digesting the information. And so then when they come to the meeting, they may be more prepared with, you know, constructive questions that will help them understand.
I agree, and we've got the power of this video. There's no reason why we can't do something like that and say this is targeted for K2, this is for 1 through 4. I mean, and just a quick 1 or 2 minute fun little video to make it very light and just, you know, I think we've got the tools here.
Or you can come over and use our fancy light board at the college. You're very photogenic, and you can do a whole video where you're talking to them and fun stuff.
Yeah, I just think, because, you know, I just think there's something that, what did they say? And we're playing over and over again. Oh, did you see this? And then allow parents just to kind of communicate with each other based on the information that we give out. I just think that's the medium we need to be using.
This is a big, wide turn for people, and you know, I had a transcript once, and they at an art school, and they had it, and we're all like, "What in the world is this?" I mean, we almost just basically didn't hire the woman because we just didn't know how to interpret all the stuff that no grades. It was just descriptions and narratives. So, I mean, it's a big term for parents when they're used to seeing certain things on a report card, and if they don't know how to interpret it, they have no idea how, you know, is my kid doing well, or is what, I don't know what this means. So, I think we're going to have to do a lot to kind of take them through that process.
Absolutely. I think right now the focus is just getting staff wrapped around the mindset of what does competency-based look like. And then I think in the spring it would be beneficial to get information out, have a parent night then, and then obviously follow-up events after that. I mean, even right from the start of next year, having a night where we go through what is my child's report card going to look like, things of that nature, so they know what's coming home, and preparing our teachers for the tough questions that are going to come, because that first round of report cards and progress reporting is very difficult still, even when you put in place parent nights and education on competency-based.
And from a parent's perspective, I was thinking about that when I was looking at Power School with my children this week. And when the teachers who are really diligent about putting a really good descriptor of what that quiz was or what that test is, I see, oh, he is not there yet with whatever. It's easier with math because it just, or either my teacher is better with her descriptors, but it really lets me know where we're falling short. And, you know, I think that would, you know, that's a really nice segue into, you know, a Okay, so instead of, the competency's already there on Power School, and then, are we gonna have the grades or not, I don't know, but,
Yeah.
but, I think Power School already does a good job at that.
Well, I can't underestimate the power of social media and using the platforms that we've got, that we can get out to the masses immediately. And then there's no, well, my teacher told me this, or my teacher told me that. And then you get parents in there starting to create their own, cyclone of information. So I think I just think we can use that. I mean, it just hit me. I don't know.
Don't underestimate the need for almost like a glossary. If we're not using common language, that confuses a lot of us, because some people call something one thing, yet we call it something else, and just the mere fact that not everybody may actually know what a competency is, or they have a different, kind of version in their head of what they think it is. So I think it's important to kind of start at step one with the assumption that no one knows anything about this, and you have to train your teachers as well as the parents on this process.
Good evening. I am Dr. Swartzlander. I'm the leader of the Intermediate Academy. A few of the things that I have been focusing on are meant to enrich our students' educational experience at Noose. We have completed 3 grants that we are waiting to hear whether or not they've been approved. One is for the North Carolina Humanities Grant to invite 2 North Carolina Rhodes Scholars to campus to do poetry workshops for our students' first slam poetry assembly that will happen in April. We also completed a Dell Foundation grant to outfit our science labs in order to allow our students to have more hands-on science activities and labs in the 5-8 space. We've also completed a teacher professional development grant to help offset the cost of the PADEA training that we are going to bring in March and August for our staff. Each week during our professional learning communities, our teachers are focused on discussing differentiation techniques and strategies to employ in the classroom in order to challenge our students and support the students who need it. We talk about the challenges of differentiation. We talk about the strides and the opportunities that differentiation affords our students in the classroom. And during the Intermediate Academy Executive Director Roundtable, we discussed our elective offerings, and we have taken the feedback from that roundtable, discussed with students, and we are creating a plan to strengthen and refresh our elective offerings that are going to allow our students to have additional opportunities for inquiry, and we're building those new electives within the constraints of the staff and the faculty that we currently have. Thank you.
Good evening. How are y'all doing today? I'm going to talk about 3 things that we're working on in Senior Academy. Targeting students and revising teaching strategies to address student needs. We've been doing this by the grade levels, and we've been doing that in individual groups in the mornings and in the afternoons. So we thank you to all those teachers who've been giving me their time. We're focusing on staff meetings, and we're shifting that from an operational to a more format where we are more reflective and be more purposeful for all of our staff meetings and how we're reflecting on it, being a reflecting practitioner, if you will. We created a survey that's sent out to 8 through 11 to gather student information to try to find out what they really want to take. What do you want to be in life, but also what do you really want to see in our Senior Academy? What draws you to Noose, and why do you want to stay with us? So we've been asking those kinds of questions through surveys. So those are the 3 things that I brought to mind from our Senior Academy.
Mr. Smith, what was the first one? I'm sorry.
The first one is targeting students' needs and revising our strategies as our teachers kind of reflect on what is working for our kids, what's not working for our kids, and how can we address those gaps and those needs.
You've probably heard us talk about the MTSS, or multi-tiered system of support. This is an element of that. We just didn't want to use jargon to explain it. We really wanted to talk authentically about what they're doing, but it's that step of really intentionally talking about student performance.
What information have you gathered so far?
We've actually narrowed it down. We've actually looked at some of how can we accelerate some students? And we've actually looked at the other side of it, saying, how can we help these students to be successful that are not being successful in class? Different strategies that we use are.
What data are the teachers using to identify the students that need the assistance?
Benchmarks and a few other things along the way. Some are informal, just based on what they're seeing in the classroom and how can we address their needs. And that has been
The goal of this process is really individual student specific, so it's not about aggregate data, it's really about identifying which individual students need specific interventions. And it's something
But
that
if you're surveying all your people, then you could see some patterns across your teachers.
So we definitely are, as administrator, we're looking at that and then seeing if there are some trends out there that's going across the way. There are some trends, but it's been one of those things where attendance has an effect on it as well. So different strands along the way.
So I think, Brian, what we're saying,
Yeah.
you're talking very, like you have information, but you're only saying, so what are the trends? I think this is a report out to what you're seeing.
So not to get too much in the weeds, but basically we've seen some data that shows that, some of our kids are not making class. So the attendance is having an effect on their actual progress in a certain class. We're looking at all, and of course, when we see that, all across all the curriculum. So it's not just one class; it's across all of them. Yes, that's kind of attendance is one of them. So
The entire day, for the entire day, or they're skipping class?
no, so it's most of the time it's ones that have just missed for the day. So it's not necessarily a skipping problem. We don't have a lot of attrition problems with not going to class. So it's more about what is our other behaviors that go along with that. So why are you not in class? Is it something that did you go to JCC and not come back? Those kinds of things. But for the most part, our trends have showed that it's just that they're not attending that day, and that's having a negative effect towards their scores in those classes.
Can you give a perspective of like the sample size of the data, and is it statistically significant? If you say attendance, right, one out of 100, is that?
What I need to remind you of again is the process that they're going through is more about, as I look at students that are in my class that aren't performing to a specific level, I bring that student to this group so that we can determine, do you know something about the student? Is there something else we need to know about the student so we can help them perform? It's really not designed to be a process that creates aggregate data. So what he's saying is that by and large, the majority of the students that are having struggles performing in class, the common theme amongst a lot of them, I think, is attendance. So now they're starting to realize we've got to figure out why these students aren't coming to class. What's driving them to not come to school? The other issues, are you identifying any learning gaps that are a common thread?
Don't you have to tell why you're not in school?
If you don't, it's unexcused. If a parent doesn't send in a note.
We're using a lot of big words here tonight that I don't know. I'm one of these. I just know I had a senior daughter that went through this, and I felt like it was basically a case of senioritis, and the fact that, I would leave the house and she's in bed till 10 o'clock because she didn't have to be to JCC till 10:30, and I'm like, well, why isn't she at school? Well, she didn't have to have school. She didn't have school. Is it looking at stuff like that when kids
To be
are checking?
clear, they are not at JCC. I will tell you that.
Well, no, this is my daughter. This happened 2 years ago. It was just one of those things where her senior schedule was, she's taken everything that she possibly could.
Are these
There's
rules
no,
they're saying they're not?
Oh, yes.
These are not necessarily.
Well, I didn't know if they were not doing well because of the
No, they
fact.
said they're not in class.
Okay.
And we're talking about a small number.
Okay.
We're talking maybe 10 kids.
Well, I didn't mean to publicly throw my daughter under the bus. I was just saying that her senior year, it just seemed like because of all the classes that she's taken, that she was not, like, did she go to school today?
He said that there's a direct correlation between a student in a class to receive the content and the learning
Yes.
and their performance.
Oh, really?
Not there.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of research that shows that.
So
The
whatever-
reason I asked Mr. Smith to bring that up is in the senior academy over the past several years, there's not been a concerted effort to meaningfully have these types of meetings on a regular basis to really identify and get ahead of student need as we're filling in gaps. And so this is a relatively new process for the team, and I think they're really finally embracing that there's some power in this, in identifying ways to help students versus just knocking your head against a wall and feeling like you're a teacher all by yourself trying to figure out why the student's not performing well in class.
So any other thing other than attendance that showed up?
Were there any skill deficits that are starting to bubble up as a common theme, or?
We always have, some deficits in math. And so we've been having our teachers have been gracious with their time and making sure that they have tutored our kids that are needing those additional time and effort. I even noted one weeks on the weekend sometimes just to make sure that they're catching up. So definitely they're dedicating their time, personal time, to make sure that their kids are successful in their classrooms. So that's just one strategy that we're using. Maybe meet me at Bojangles if you would.
And Mr. Smith's final comment that he made about the survey to the 8th through 11th graders became a larger outcropping of a conversation that was started from the board about just an interest in knowing if students who are rising 9th graders are making their decisions of choice as to whether or not to remain in news charter for 9 through 12 or to potentially look at other choices. So the question was posed to us, what about our 8th grade students? And we thought, what, this is really a big question for 8th through 11th. What keeps you coming to our senior academy? What makes us the reason that you stay? So that survey has gone out, I think, this week. Actually, I think it went over the holiday, and apparently our students did not take advantage of participating in the survey while they were eating turkey. So we're reminding them of that survey being out there, but it's got some targeted questions about, as he mentioned, what are you looking for in your high school experience from an academic perspective, from a course perspective, from a pathway perspective, so that we can get that information to understand what it is they're looking for, and then to make sure that that matches what we're offering. Or if it doesn't, understand that that's okay because it's outside the mission of our school. So that'll be that middle school, high school attrition information. That data is still being generated for us to figure out what it is that is being a part of their decision-making process.
Was it anything social questions? I mean, because I can tell you right now, having 2 kids that are in college, the social thing, that was a big.
We mainly stayed according to the interest of, what's drawing you here. So, is it IBC? Is it CCP? What is it that's bringing you to us? Why are you wanting to stay with us? So it's those kinds of questions. That's not necessarily the social side of things.
So that went to the students, or they went to?
That went to the students.
It went to the students only.
For now, as a start, and then we'll use that information to figure out if we need to survey parents or not.
If I may backtrack.
Am I? Yes, there you go. Dr. Schwartzlang, I just want to commend you for the reintroducing the Medea. That kind of excites me. That's something that started here at News. No, I should say started. When we first started News, that was kind of a big thing, and I hope that's very successful. So I just want to commend you for doing that. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I missed last month. You may have done a big story on it, so I apologize for that.
I didn't.
So the other thing that you had asked me to report on is a recommendation for the target for this year's school performance bonus. And so the target that we're recommending is a 3% growth in our overall school report card grade. This current year we earned a 72, so we're looking to achieve, a 70. And we earned a 72. Yes, we earned a 72 this year, which brought us up from a 70 from the previous year. So we're looking to target a 74 for the 2018-19 school year with meeting or exceeding growth. And that's what I and administration would recommend to you be the target that we set for the teacher performance bonus for the 2018-19 school year. And as a reminder to anyone who's listening, that would be paid out in September to the staff that are still with us because the final result of the school report card grade wouldn't be released until that time.
Just out of curiosity,
So if a new teacher was hired, it's just for everybody that's here this year that's there next year.
Right.
So
if you're part,
5 or 6.
It's all, if you're part of the team for the 18-19 school year, then you would receive your, yeah. It's only, but if someone's hired
No,
for
I'm
the
saying if
19
somebody's
school year, then they're
yeah,
not.
right. Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
You have to be part of the team that made it happen.
was 3, what would that be, 75?
It's a 3% increase, so that takes us from a 72 to a 74. And then looking at the research, a 3% is,
Not 3 points, 3%.
yeah, it's a doable goal that's still a stretch. And especially with the meeting or exceeding growth, which they sort of go hand in hand. It's not a crazy stretch, but it's a way to make sure that we're continuously moving that ball.
Is there ever a situation where you would hit the 3% but not meet growth?
It would be very, very difficult, but it's possible.
So it's that and?
Yes. Yes. Because meeting and exceeding growth is truly, as individual teachers, what we're supposed to be doing every single day is making sure that our students are getting as much as, if not more growth than they're projected to get in the school year. That's our job, is to accelerate their learning in all situations. And then to achieve the 74 is a proficiency rating, but it's that level 3 or above on the scores for the AUCs and AOGs.
So this is a recommendation on our target. However, it does not identify what the bonus would be. We would just set that at a later time.
Yes, correct. It's my understanding through the finance committee that we always make those decisions based on the available budget at the time.
Yeah, what we agreed on in the previous ordinance, the administration of the bonus target would be determined towards the end of the year based on availability, recommendation for the EDU and distribution strategy. Nobody said it has to be linear or fixed or whatever. That's part of what we decide between now.
That would be at the end, like next December? Or is this in?
No, I'm saying we would
As we set the
do
budget.
it closer to like May as the end of the fiscal year financials get a little, we just tighten those up always around the May timeframe. Because the end of the fiscal is in June, so we should set to have that probably done, I'd say, at the April board meeting would be a good time frame to set the actual implementation of the structure.
If we meet the
If we meet the target. I mean,
And so would we reset this target every year, or is this a base 3%?
no, so actually.
I would recommend we reset it every year.
So actually, this is a conversation that you and I'd like the academic affairs committee look a little bit more holistically about how we're measuring academic success at Moose against where we want the school to go. I mean, remember we said at the board retreat, we didn't feel like we were that detailed enough, so we just picked something to start with the school report card. But after kind of studying that a little bit more, I'm not sure that the school report card gets to the level of detail we would, for example, like in the high schools around college readiness or like ACT or SAT performance, etc. I just think we should probably look towards next year. This is the first start for this year. For next year, we should probably do a little bit. And then the competency-based stuff, right? I mean, is there some dimension of competency assessment beyond what they do for school report card that we need to look at? So I'd like to see that academic committee maybe dive into that a little bit and come back with a recommendation before the end of this year so that we can start looking at that recommendation next year. I'm not a fan of a linear 3% step because, I mean, let's be honest, I mean, it takes a lot of years to get back to where we were before. If we go with that.
Which is exactly why we recommended as a step one. And when we did talk about that at our board retreat, I do recall that we would pick a target for this year that was easy to wrap our minds around in terms of, and also foundational. It's sort of like the writing process that happened as we got plus leadership. If we're not achieving a high enough school report card grade, our foundations aren't even strong, much less the depth that we're looking for in other areas. So we do foresee that over time, as we get our school report card grade where we wanted, those other targets that we'd be trying to meet as well.
So I do have to ask, I mean, I did a little bit of a comparison around some of the schools that grew their school report card performance, like last academic year. And there was a fairly wide range of performances, some that grew north of 6 points in an individual year. I'm just curious, what type of comparison or analysis was done to pick that? I mean, does that
for us, it was
pushes us?
No, for us, it's looking backwards and looking forward and recognizing that we're also in a change period. So we thought this first goal should be attainable, but still, we can fall short. We cannot meet it. If we just do what we did last year, we'll get a 72. So if we're not pushing ourselves to continue to improve our instructional strategies and target our students, much like we discussed today, we're not going to get there. and continuing to meet or exceed growth. I mean, for me, when I looked at those 3 years leading up to our lowest score, it was constantly, we went from exceeding growth to meeting growth to no growth. You know, we went from a score that was much higher all the way down to one that was almost a C. So we fell relatively marginally, but quickly. We can grow the same. My goal for us is really to make sure that our staff sees that success in the students is something that they can, know that they're accountable for, but also that once that happens, then that's a launching pad for momentum for even greater gains. It's the first time we've ever done it, and so we need it to be powerful and impactful and meaningful.
And maybe not for this year, but, because this is our first time doing this, in the future, could we not within our budget give some kind of parameters or at least some kind of range as to what a bonus would be? Because I can foresee years where one year we have a 3% growth and a particular employee gets, $300, and then the next year the growth is even greater, and then for whatever reason, because, finances are what they are, the bonus is less, and so it's, if it's going to be a bonus structure, I think we need to be a little more intentional about it.
We've talked about that. This is not, we're not in the business of making money where you tie money to revenue return to your business. So it is a bit different. So as treasurer, I don't foresee that we would ever tie revenue to amount of academic performance, because you get into all kinds of gaming the system, et cetera, et cetera. And then also the reality is you basically take the money in to actually meet the financial obligations of the school. So you're going to have to go on a year-by-year basis. You're going to have to fix how much you can pay out based on the financial demands of the school in a given year. I mean, whether you build a building, whether some unknown event comes up, I would be nervous in saying that we're going to build some 5-year bonus structure that guarantees over 5 years, if you grow 2% more, you're going to get X more money, because at that point, it's very less deterministic. And that's one thing as treasurer I will say to the board is that when you only have fixed money coming in that meets the obligations, the tighter budget we run, I like to minimize uncertainty as much as you can. Because we should be, because at some point what happens when you get to a point where as you grow more, it's going to be harder and harder to squeeze more out of the system, right?
I just, in every other profession in the world, money and compensation is a driving factor. And I just want to treat our teachers like professionals and give them some kind of, I know we can't give a guarantee, but in the future, and like I said, not this year, but maybe in the future, once we see how this structure works, we can possibly get a little more.
No, that's a good point. I think we should remember that the strategy around compensation, you said this very frequently, I feel like we keep forgetting this, is that the capacity for significant staff compensation changes is directly dependent on our ability to offload facility costs. I mean, it's just that simple. So I think we have to be very honest about this. I mean, if I don't remember the total numbers, but I mean, it's on the order of like $1.3 million every single 12 months. That's an opportunity to redirect to where we want it to go.
And that's something that our parents, i.e. stakeholders, as Roddy likes to, there's a direct correlation. And so when we're out trying to raise money for teacher salaries, what we're really trying to do is pay off the debt so that we can pay teachers, effectively, so. We need to burn the mortgage. That's exactly, that's true. That's yeah.
People are very familiar with that. Everybody's wrestling work to pay off their mortgage. So
right.
I think that would resonate more deeply.
Right.
And so just to, we also remember that in the compensation strategy we approved, we left the leeway for next year that there was a second dimension of the bonus structure that was an individual performance factor. This was just supposed to be, look, we've gone from the fact of where we paid bonuses with no performance to actually trying to do institutional performance. When you get to the realm of individual performance, administration of that, there's more complexities that come with it, but directionally, as far as tying more compensation to performance, I'm open to it. I just think we need to realize the larger financial picture is without those facility burdens relieved, there is just not a lot of leeway in those budgets or significant fundraising efforts to offset those costs.
The other reality is that, I mean, I've been saying for a long time that we really need to focus on some enrollment management in a 3 to 5 year, because the changing demographics for this area, which Chris knows very well, might mean that we don't have as many students. There's going to be more older people here than school-age kids. So now it's going to hit your enrollment, which hits your budget. And so we may just have less by no fault of our own. We could be out there recruiting and do whatever, but if you just don't have that population in our community, which is less and less of those folks, then we're going to be stuck. And then we have the burden of the facilities, and that just handcuffs us a little bit more. So we do need to vote.
He had his phone, he said, I've got to check on something. But we got to find it.
Oh, 8, okay. All right, so we have a recommendation. Do we have a motion? Based on
I
recommendation.
make a motion that we accept the recommendation. I make a motion that we accept the recommendation of staff. Of 3%, the recommendation of 3% by staff.
3% meet growth.
And 3% and the growth, yes. As an academic target. Why don't you make that right now? Whatever Susan said, that's my motion.
Okay, any further questions
We need a
or
second.
discussion?
We need a second, Madam Chairman.
And then
Second.
oh, before that.
Yeah, we
Oh,
got to
I'm
have
sorry,
a
that's
motion
right.
and a second
In
and
a second,
discuss it.
sorry.
You're itching to
Second.
vote.
I second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
So one last one. So on a year-to-year basis, are there changes to the way they administer that measurement such that it affects that? Because that's a bell curve system. So, I mean, is there a chance that you basically stay flat in your outcome and deliverable, but your number goes up because they bell curve?
Yes, I can answer that. And they can change the test
We do
completely.
that with the EOC.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that's just going to be a year-to-year. We can't control what the state's going to do.
Which is why we may want to have some
Other
internal assessments.
Yes. That will shift.
That's why I made the comment I'd like a little bit more diverse.
Well, we need to have two. We need to have the internal, but I can tell you we'd have all the internal numbers we want, saying we're the greatest school in the world, but it's what's written in the News Observer or whatever the post is, so that's.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed?
All right.
Nicole vote? I'm in the best mood to be the tiebreaker. Is there, can we have a discussion on the no's, on their opposition, or is that inappropriate?
You can explain why you said no.
I'm sorry?
You can explain why you said no.
Can you explain why you said no?
I'll start, and this may be just, this is based on my understanding and kind of my expectations of what I think our capabilities are, and I think that we need to set it a little bit higher. I'm also not so sure about how exactly we are measuring that growth, and that this is the best way to go about doing that.
but mainly because I think that we're capable of doing more.
So it's mainly that the.
Oh, that can be done as a friendly amendment. I mean, you know, I'll accept a friendly
Amendment if, to my motion, if somebody says, well, I think we need to hit 5 or whatever.
Well, I think we got to resolve his motion first, either is withdrawn or.
Well, then,
We can amend it.
well, either that or I'll withdraw it.
You can withdraw, because now that a vote's been taken, I think you can't amend it, but if during discussion, it was.
Okay, well then Dawn needs to shoot it down if she doesn't agree with it, and then we'll make another motion. You need to vote, you need to vote.
Okay, no.
Okay.
So,
And why do you say no?
No, it doesn't matter.
Well, no, I'm just.
Well, it does matter, but we should
Yeah,
be
you know-
having discussions and voting. That's what the purpose of
Well, we're
making a
done voting.
motion, making a second, are there any discussions?
Well, we're done voting.
I know that, but okay, now does anybody want to make a motion to, do the noes want to make a motion to something different?
So, Michelle, you thought it should be higher. Yes. And again, I will readily admit I am not an educator, but it's just my observation.
Is 5% attainable to those educators?
I don't want to sit here and make motions after motions. I mean, the thing is that I'm comfortable with 3, but if the remaining board does not, then, I can make another motion, say, should we do 5, and then do another round of voting, or I can do it for 4. But the point is that whoever voted no for it, if there's something that should be done or not, then
Just to put it in perspective, 5% is 75 pieces.
I think there has to be those benchmarking, you just have this discussion, you don't start at 90% and say you have to grow, but I think that is a decision ours.
He was saying that a 5% would be 75, basically.
5% of 72 gives you 75 pieces. When they report out, it's just on the.
So that's 75 or 76.
I'd like to hear from the educators whether that's attainable, because, it's why even pass a bonus structure if it's not attainable, or, like Michelle said, not an educator, don't know, I don't know the numbers.
Well, so if we do that, just for discussion's sake for a second. Typically, one of the things you can do is you can set targets, and you can set stretch targets. I mean, honestly, I was hoping to come here and hear a target and a stretch target. But I didn't, I just heard a target. Which, to me, I thought the target was too low. So, that is something I would put out there for us to think about as we listen to your responses. You can always set a baseline for a target, but you can set a stretch target. That's what I'm used to in the customer satisfaction world, where things are ambiguous and not as discrete and reliable. There's a lot of variabilities in the system. You could say, we will settle with a minimum target of X with a stretch target of Y.
Where were we at before we had 70?
It was
Well, let me just say something. I mean, I agree with what everybody's saying here, but I think we as board members need. Staff came with a recommendation of 3. We shot it down, and we're going back to them and saying, what can you do? The point is that we as a board need to decide what that is and go forward. So if it's 75 or 76 or 80 or 90, whatever that is, we as a board need to make that decision. We shouldn't shoot down something that they come to us and recommend and then ask them what they should do. What do we want them to do is my position as a board member.
Well,
If you're asking for
the reason
historical.
I asked
No, I'm not,
is because, as I want to make an educated vote to know if it's actually attainable or not.
Just in response to the historical data, in 2014-15, the school received a grade of B with a score of 76 and exceeded growth. In 15-16, a score of B with 75 and met growth. And then in 16-17, it was a score of B with a 70 and did not meet growth. And in 17-18, we had a score of B with a 72 and met growth.
So essentially we came from a 70 to a 72. So from 70 to a 72, so that, so that's 3%?
5.2%. It's a 5.2% drop in a 3%.
What would be, is there a negative to setting a specific number as opposed to setting a percentage of growth?
It's just something, just calculate the thing.
I'm just saying, as opposed to having like a 75.6 or 5.6%.
I mean, this is why I had brought up the point before is if you want to be an A-rated academic institution determined by a system, you ask yourself, what is that target? They're currently on a 15-point scale, that's an 85. That's as defined by the state system, right? So if we want to be there, shouldn't we ask ourselves, like, how fast are we going to get there? And I would just like to bring this up because I think it's relevant. 3 years ago, in the SIP meeting, when Chris and I went and asked, we asked staff, do you believe we can be an A-rated academic institution? Unanimously, they said yes. We said, how long do you think it'll take us to get there? We asked them to stand on a scale of 1 to 10 in years. But just to give a perspective, right? Everybody in that group went to that 2 to 3 year time frame. That was 3 years ago. So I have a hard time believing that we don't have higher aspirations that we could get to an A-rated academic institution at a 3% growth rate. How many years is that going to take us to get there? That's why it just feels like we're selling ourselves, our staff, and our students short. That's the trajectory we're going.
And if I may, staff's recommendation was not that it would be a perpetual 3%, that it would just be for this first year. Do keep in mind they're adding a new math EOC to the schedule, which is Math 3, which has not been administered in maybe ever, I think, since they converted to the Common Core Math 1, Math 2, Math 3. I don't think they've administered that. And I believe it's also a renorming year for math in general because they got new standards. So those things tend to negatively impact overall proficiency scores.
So that's statewide.
Yes. Yes. And then I believe they're removing biology for a period of time from the score calculations, which is one of our highest performing exams to date. But I think it's because it's been a long time since they've updated the standards, so they're probably getting ready to update the standards. And if she may, Ms. LePage wanted to say something.
Yeah, I just want to say as a student, as we were having this discussion, I asked Ms. Pulliam what these numbers were based on, and she told me that our ACT scores and our SAT scores, and not SATs, I'm sorry, EOG and EOC scores are kind of what makes this number. And just in senior seminar and as we go through this college application process, we've been told that these standards for us as students are getting higher and the GPA requirements for colleges are getting higher and our scores are getting higher. So, you know, asking Ms. Pulliam, I said, is that going to affect what is growth as a school? And she said yes. So maybe, you know, expecting a 5% growth rate, even though the tests are getting harder, seems like a stretch just as a student and as someone who's trying to meet these goals for myself. 5% growth on tests that are, you know, we're being told are getting harder, it just seems difficult and it seems a little out of reach just as a student.
You mean for ACT and SAT tests?
For ACTs and EOCs and EOGs, you know, we're being told they're getting harder just as standards continue to grow.
So we think the K through 8 EOCs are getting significantly harder next year.
The standards have been realigned and renormed, so yes.
For math, 3 through 8, all the standards have been realigned.
And language arts.
And language arts as well for 3 8 or 3?
Yeah, yes. Mm-hmm.
Does that mean harder or just different?
It means that
They're comparing it to different norms.
You compared it, you're not comparing apples.
Right.
Right. This is not an apples to apples comparison, and that's one of the things I think that we're sitting here and trying to wrap our minds around the conversation that's happening here is there are numbers that are being thrown out tied to performance, but yet we need to look at what our students are predicted to score in EVOS to see what the the predicted percentage increase or proficiency is. We need to take a look at the renorming of the tests and how that's going to impact proficiency ratings. We need to figure out which subgroups are going to be included in our proficiency ratings. There's a lot of factors, a lot of variables in this that are more than just a 5% increase. Because we couldn't, as a staff, sit down and say, if we're going to get a 5% increase on our proficiency ratings, what does that mean for our kids? I don't even know how to answer that.
So then how did you come up with the numbers, Susan?
It was a trend, looking at the trend data from where we were as a school, I believe. Is that correct, Mrs. Pulliam?
Part of it is looking at a trend, and there's research that shows that 3% is one of those that's attainable. Again, it's our first year of instituting the bonus. We didn't want it to come out the gates and not be successful at all, or not even potentially be successful, because then it looks like we created a system that can't work. In addition, we were looking at the trends and knowing that these changes were coming into place, thought that the 3% growth in a year where lots of scores are going to go down was still a stretch. Well, historically, whenever they do a renorming, all of our historical data shows us that the overall performance goes down. Because if you'll even notice in these charters, the reason I never go back past 2014-15 is because there was a renorming year. We were in the high 80s right before 2014-15, and then we dropped to the 70s. The state
Run it back. What are they doing? What are they redoing?
Well, first there's new standards, so they're realigning the standards. So some of those standards are new standards that haven't been taught before and haven't been assessed before at the statewide level. So they've done pilots, but they've not actually taken all of North Carolina students and put them to this assessment to collect all of the data. Second, usually when they do a renorming, they're actually changing the curve. They usually are bringing it down a little bit so that the students will have to climb higher to be able to show higher proficiency.
And that's what this school needs to do. Because to me, I just think we've been in this lull of waiting for something miraculous to happen and being very safe. And that was, why you ended up at the sit, because they continued to put these benchmarks that were just, we can do this. And they didn't stretch themselves, even though when you ask them, they were like, yeah, we can be an A-rated school. I think we have worked on academic redesign or plus for over a year. We have talked this game for a number of years, and I think that now we should start producing. So if they renorm, because they're going to make it more competitive for students, because we are in a more competitive world, and it's our responsibility to ensure that when you go out there, Tara, you have all the prerequisite skills to be successful, not necessarily just keep it at a point where it feels safe and comfortable. That's our responsibility as a school system. And so if we need to dramatically change what we do to move our students to a new level, then that's what we've been asking for years, quite frankly. It's been the same discussion, I know, that I've been here. And if this is the launching pad for people to start thinking different, doing different, producing different, and understanding that there is a higher level that we have to reach, and it may be difficult and uncomfortable, and we may not get there the first go around, then that's where we need to be, in my mind.
But I will say this, I've been on the board since 2013, and this is probably with the administration and the staff that we have right now, if there's ever been a time that's capable of doing it, it's right now.
That's what I believe.
And I believe that.
But that's kind of my point, is we have such a great group right now. And, it seems like we're just putting this all on the backs of these teachers, not on ourselves and not on our parents. And, I don't think this bonus structure is going to make or break our report card this year. I mean, it's a great incentive, but the bonus structure is not what's going to get us there. It's everything else that everybody else is.
Yeah,
but we've gone down, so we don't have to give them a bonus structure, and if they feel like we can just keep doing the same thing, we've just made a minor turnaround. Not to say that that's not important, because thankfully we did turn around, but this is something that we are trying to say, for this, we want to compensate you, we want to congratulate you in a way for the extra stuff that we all know they're going to have to, they have to do more professional development, they have to learn more things, they may have to teach differently, with the same challenges that they always have, but find a new way to make it still happen. So it's just a thank you for that. I don't think it's, you know, I mean, this is not what they're going to hang their hat on, you know, this bonus, but I do think that people appreciate seeing what the end goal is, putting in a lot of effort to get there, and then there's something extra there for them to say thank you for your work and your time.
Yeah, and also to make a point to go with that, I totally agree with you that holistically, this has been my frustration, that we don't look at strategic investments, money and resources towards that core learning academic goal tightly enough. Meaning, like, if they come in here and said, you know what, based on my research or whatever, I want to set an aim. If there was I bet you would come back and say, I would expect that staff would probably come in and say, we need a lot of extra support in some areas, right? Whether math or English or whatever. And that just may be unrealistic financially. But the fact that it forces that dialogue that says, you know what, maybe we put a building strategy on hold for a couple of years, or maybe there's things we have to pause in our elective, some things, right? Those are strategic investment trade-offs that you have to make when you set a goal like that. So if you just say 74.3%, and business just remains as normal with some minor tweaks to get there, to me that was setting the bar too low. So if it's not forcing a bit of uncomfortableness, then my perspective is the target's not high.
I'm going to make a motion that we set the bonus structure at 75 as opposed to a percentage. I think he said 5.6%. 75 from a 72.
No, it was 72 to 74.
It's 4.1.
And I made
4.2%.
4.2.
Is that
I
means
made
you got a 3 points against a 72-point basis? That's a 4.1.
whatever percentage it is, I'm making a motion that we set the bonus structure growth at 75 as opposed to a percentage.
Motion, we have a second.
Just to clarify, would that motion continue with the meet or exceed growth?
Yes, to meet or exceed growth.
I'm good with it. Yes, I second that motion for the purpose of discussion.
And I would just like to also point out, just please keep in mind our current compensation package and how low we are compared to our competition.
I'm not sure what does that mean in relation to?
So it's an aspect of our compensation, and with a, we set a goal. I'm not saying it's not attainable, but we set a goal that's not attainable, that keeps us in leverage, is not competitive.
I think our compensation system is set up differently than the traditional school system.
It's lower, right?
Well, it depends on the teacher.
Well, there's only a handful of teachers that would be on par with us in right now. And those would be those with 0 to 1 year.
Yeah, I mean, it's a related yet separate discussions and proposals being worked on that. But that's a separate base issue.
Well, to me, at the end of the day, no matter what you're paid, we are an outcome-based organization. That's, so whether it's lower compensation or higher compensation, you can make a lot of money, we can still be having the same conversation that we're not seeing the outcomes that we need, and then, whatever happens with that. I mean, so I think what we're trying to do is make a focus on performance-based
I could please remind you all to use your microphones for the recording.
Wow, you can't. Sorry, yes.
We have not set what this bonus will be. I mean, from a monetary standpoint, it's just going to be whatever it is. Crystal ball looking ahead, Roger, what are you thinking that this could possibly be per?
No, look, that's gonna need some, look, we're gonna have some.
I mean, are we talking $500? Are we talking $1,000? Are we talking?
We shouldn't go
Does
there.
that have anything to do?
Yeah, it will, because what I'm going to do, what I'd like to do is based on, go with the 75%, but if we hit a higher benchmark, then we need to step up more than what, if we come up to, this is what you get.
My recommendation is if the motion on the table is one flat number, if you want to start saying you want to give an option to tier it, you need to set multiple levels.
I wouldn't say, for the first year, but for the first year,
Stretch target, leave yourself.
well, that's what I want to say. I'd like to go with the second, because we're only talking about basically one point above what we denied. So if we want to shoot for an 80, if we want to shoot for an 80, that, you know, that.
No, that's. I get you, I respect.
Well, you just sat here and talked about stretching, so let's, I mean,
So,
I'm just saying.
are you comfortable with the tier? So if a 3% would only give them that much and a 5% would give them another?
But we're talking, I mean, it's tough to do this because we're talking in vague numbers. It may be $100 or it may be $1,000. I don't know
So
what that is.
essentially what it would be is that when we got ready to determine an amount, that we would have to set an amount for each tier. When we determine that.
So let me give you, I mean, again, I didn't make the motion, but you could say 75 with a stretch target of 77. And then based on your financial standings towards the end of the year, you observe how much work it takes to get there. I mean, you observe all those things. And then you make a call that says, you know what, the amount you tie to the tiers is determined at. Say if you say 75 base, and you're going to stretch at 77, and you say, you know what, if you guys double down and everybody rides and you knock it out of the park, you get to 77, you give yourself leeway to make the financial. Now, the only issue you have is the fact you don't get the numbers until September.
And that's the tough that we're playing with. So I withdraw whatever my friendly amendment was going to be. So I
In the end, we're still trying to determine the amount.
At some point, you've got to determine.
well, as we move forward, I'd like for us to make sure that we set aside for future years that we can bank those funds so that we do have that small pit pool of money set aside that, you know, that we want to call it stretch. So
The motion on the table is
just say it.
And you second that?
I did.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
So you don't.
Oh.
Did you look at the amount of compensation out of the base salary?
I think it sends, I don't want them to think it sends messages. And I know it's kind of, it's illogical to say I'm voting no because I don't think I think it's too high. And so the end result is there is no bonus.
So you're voting no because you think it's too high?
I'm voting no because I think we should have done 3%.
I voted on the motion that was on the table.
Madam Chairman.
mean, that
Yes,
doesn't mean,
because
that doesn't
what
mean
is
that
the
that's.
stretch target fee, or is there money assigned to, so we're back to the tier?
It gives you flexibility that as you observe it, between now and that period of time, it gives you leeway into how you compensate.
So if they get 76, what does that mean?
That means you didn't meet the stretch, so you base it on a 75 target. You met your 75 target.
If I may,
It's kind of arbitrary.
if you
don't
said-
know what pot you're talking
That's
about.
exactly right. That goes to my question, because I mean, I have no problem saying a stretch of whatever. So, but we're talking
If I
about.
may,
First of all, I would hope that people
Are trying to push towards our A-rated, to get an A-rated school, just period, whether it's attached to a bonus or not. So I don't want it to just seem like it's, you know, oh, well, I'm gonna do this much because I'm satisfied with the 75, because that'll give me $300 for Christmas, or, you know, and not.
We're really butchering Robert's Rules of Order, so
Yes, we
I
are.
mean,
I'm
because
sorry.
we should be voting, but I guess since we've done it this bad, we can ask you to amend your motion, which I will.
Or how about I can withdraw my motion?
I have to vote. Right.
Yeah.
You should vote yes or no. So we
I
can
would
do
say,
this all
I would say
done.
no.
Okay.
Michelle could amend her motion.
Well, so it would be a new motion, so someone else.
Right, new
Or,
motion.
oh, yeah, well, it's not, there's nothing like withdrawn. You can say withdrawn. but not withdrawn.
It's not you're voting, but it's shot down. The motion doesn't carry. because-
So someone else will make another motion.
I make a motion for 75 points with a stretch of 77.
clarifying that. it-
And also, it meets or exceeds growth.
Any discussion?
I make a motion that it is not tied to a percentage, but just a score of 75 with a stretch of 77, and is tied to meets or exceeds growth.
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Okay. We have to go
My
back.
hour of life back.
Yes, I know. We need to go back, one, and approve the agenda. We didn't have a quorum, so can we just,
I make a motion that we approve the agenda as well as the minutes from October 2018.
Second.
any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Okay, thank you. We're in committee report, so. Executive committee does not have a report. And now standing committees, finance.
I don't think we had any major changes. The budget's in front of you. We're currently projecting $180,000 in surplus against the current spend rate of the budget. No significant changes as far as incoming expenses at this time. So we just need the committee recommends approving the budget as presented.
I second that. That's a motion.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Resource committee? Resource committee?
Is Amanda here? Do we have minutes? Did we present those? Are they in the packet? I apologize.
No, they're not in the packet.
Do you mind, because I stepped out after the end, I know that we discussed, I've drawn a blank. I know my to-do list was to talk to the two individuals about not building, but facility needs. I'm looking for staff for help.
I'm sorry, I'm getting for you.
That's okay. I don't have anything in front of me.
All right, just highlights of the task, and I apologize about this because I left halfway through. When email capital campaign pledge cards, we were hoping, what we're planning on doing, I was there for this, and I apologize, talking about Silver Cougars and reaching out to family members and sending out cards to grandparents, aunts, uncles, things of that nature, and sending out where we would have the students write handwritten, as a part of their curriculum, write handwritten thank you notes and notes, and talking about pledge opportunities. And Wording for Woods was used as an example, and the focus on PayPal. Mr. Williams was going to get with Ms. Pullum to tweak about the giving page. My task was, in which I've done, is to talk up, there's 2 potential donors that may see value in just making a flat-out one-time contribution there's a couple of things like the science lab that needs to be updated. We're talking about going to check with guidance to verify alumni addresses and look for opportunities that we can talk to our former graduates to look about trying to begin that, even though most of them are still in college, to begin that pipeline as they graduate and get older, to look at ways and opportunities for them to give. And that's all I have. I apologize.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda.
I'll return it to you.
That academic affairs committee had to be rescheduled due to illness, but was there an update on the class audit? I have this on the thing.
Mr. Smith and I are still in the early stages of that, looking at the syllabi for Biology 1, and we're pulling in Dr. Silver and Ms. Smith as well. Biology 1, World History 1, English 1, and Math 1, all of our level 1 courses in the core curriculum for 9th grade, and do a similar process that we did with the freshman and senior seminar, and start there with making sure there's, except a little bit more intense because there is standard curriculum to cross-reference it to, and to make sure everything is in alignment. The result of the conversation about freshman and senior seminar is coming up with a consistent template that all of our staff use for the syllabi, so it's easy for parents to see from class to class what the purpose of the course is, what the requirements for the course are, what the breakdown for grading scales and all of that, so that you're not going from one class where it's a single sheet of paper and have very little information to another class where maybe you've got really detailed objectives and unit breakdowns. So making sure that we have a good solid template. The history department, well, I should say the senior seminar teachers have sort of taken the lead on that because that one was the most well vetted, and we're moving forward with that. So they'll be ready for, certainly for the 2019-20 school year as we start the new academic year, any that we can get revised in time for next semester, we'll also do as well.
Is there a freshman seminar next semester?
No, the seminar classes won't be next semester, but in terms of using that template to start updating in terms of what every single syllabus for every single course in the senior academy.
Well, I think that's a piece of it, certainly the template, but I think the content, the curriculum is also.
They review that annually, and I know for the freshman seminar in particular, we were going to work with the team throughout next semester to figure out where we could enhance the curriculum, because we didn't take that under advisement, the idea that all staff, or all teachers or faculty within the senior academy should be at the table when we talk about freshman seminar to make sure that it truly is addressing the needs as they matriculate forward, and that we're not missing some opportunities to enhance the curriculum to make sure the students are well prepared for their 10th, 11th, and 12th grade years as well. And partnering with the counselor to make sure that there's some preparations we can do within that course to get them ready for outside opportunities like CCP or IBC courses or NCBPS, we can build that into the curriculum.
Is that something that can be presented to the board?
Absolutely.
Because those are 2 internally
Absolutely.
developed courses in terms of
Our plan was to run it through the academic committee and use that channel for review and feedback before we brought it to the board, but absolutely, the full board should see those. Agreed.
Would that be something the board would, we've never been presented with a course that's developed. Would you be interested in like course descriptions, learning outcomes, the stuff that they're doing in the course?
The other thing we've talked about as a staff is that if there's an idea that the board might just want a working session, in other institutions I've heard it referred to as a committee of the whole, where maybe it's not truly a board meeting, but it's just an opportunity for you to get around the table all together and go through something like this, where that way it's not about voting or approving, it's really about learning how it goes. And if there's any other topics that you'd like to talk about as well, because I know your committees work in isolation, and sometimes it's great to all come together, but no, it's not the formal structure of a board meeting. So if you're interested in something like that in the spring semester at some point, we would be happy to see that.
I think, besides observing classes, it's probably would be very helpful for us to understand just, how the course is developed and to learn more about the content and have maybe some suggestions on it. Because I know personally, I think that there's something at the other end in seeing students come in with just huge and not like one or two students. I'm saying like the whole stream of high school graduates coming in with significant deficiencies that I think need to be addressed in high school. And it's just, those are topics that I think are not being talked about. They're just like critical 21st century skills that they're focusing on other things that, okay, but the student doesn't have like digital skills or, some critical thinking or just some basic stuff.
Yeah,
I have students who just get out of high school. I need my high school transcript to transfer. Would I get that from my high school? And this is not me. This is my entire faculty who are like, they just, what is going on? And it's not funny because dealing with students who may have lawnmower parents. I'm not pointing at you, Michelle. I'm just saying lawnmower parents who do a lot of fixing for their students. So then when their student is by themselves having to make decisions, they are frozen because they don't do that. Either mom does it or dad does it, and it stalls them a lot of times. And so, I know some of the other things you might be doing in the classes you think are important, but those are things that are going to cross everything, and when they go into four-year institutions, and when they're at work. And I just think we're missing opportunities to start those conversations, especially in the freshman or even really middle school.
And that's where we let the competencies drive any revisions that we make, to make sure that what we're doing is aligning any curricular adjustments toward those competencies that we set forth.
Personally, I would value some. I'm not as interested as an individual course content. I think there needs to be some vetting process. There needs to be consistent alignment across teachers. Scenarios where one teacher for the same class teaches something radically different than another one. That's just, to me, is operational fidelity. I think there should be checks and balances in place to address that. What I'd like to see is a larger conversation about the classes we take and which problem they're solving for in the bigger scheme of things. Because a hoop freshman seminar is not being used as a remediation issue to a math or reading deficiency, because that didn't get delivered in the class it should have. So I think a broader picture of the courses that are presented, which things they're trying to teach, and then how it all ties together would be valuable to me. Like, for example, are there college entry requirements that we see require us certain things, and we have a gap in our curriculum where they don't have a drama or whatever like that's also think about adding particularly a dance class or something. I'm sure there was some reasoning behind that class being added, not just people just want it. Right? It is tied to our level of income. So we could have some roundtable discussion.
No, I think you have a lot of things because people just want it.
No, that's exactly.
Oh.
That's why I say I'd like to see some dialogue that says, hey, based on our current landscape of offerings, these are the things we're offering, and here's the rationale for which we offer them. There's some of them that say, well, it's just what people want. Well, if you ask the kids, they'll want a bunch of easy classes where they don't do anything, right? They may not even prepare for success. So I think that would be a more healthy discussion.
Would it be helpful if, so what Dawn had suggested was that staff present the course description for freshman seminar? Is that what you were?
don't.
Present their course, because I don't think we know what it means to develop a course or the elements of it. That's what I thought was a good professional development for us. So that when we're even discussing things and vocabulary or different phrase, that then you could attach it to, oh, okay, because I know that's how they do this and this, and this is the reason why we have this grading scale or these number of assignments, or a little bit of backstory on why things happen in a classroom, even just the pacing and the flow. How long do you typically spend on a particular concept, things like that.
And just use that as an exemplar so that there's
Yes.
a common understanding of how course
Yes.
development works, so that you can have better conversations with parents or anyone else that might be.
I mean, the main question from a student through us is, why are you teaching us this? Why do I have to do it? And so, sometimes that can be answered through, this is how we decided all of these things should be put together in this particular way to provide you with this level of instruction. This is why. What is it supposed to be doing? Yeah.
I just don't want to do it for just the concept of developing one class, because if staff comes and says, we could randomly say, well, why don't you add this class? If you don't understand all the work it takes to really go do a really good one, you probably wouldn't suggest it. So I think it's good we have that perspective. But then the second thing is, part of that is when we develop one, what is the decisions we go through to understand in the broader landscape of all the things we offer. When do we need one, and how do we determine when there's gaps and deficiencies beyond just kids saying, well, we just want one? And I think there's, like I said, we're college prep, and we gotta say, I would hope that every one of them would say, in some way, it links back to preparing kids for that stage of their life. If not, I would say, why don't we add it?
And I'm asking the question because we had some emails going back and forth about being more deliberate and about action items and things, so I wanted to be clear about what we were asking the school to do. So, Rodney, if we...
We're saying, I would like to see both. I would like to see a walkthrough of course development, of what it takes to develop a course. And the second thing is I would like to see a presentation around the current course mapping and the outcomes of each one of them. And if that, in an educator's terminology, is delivered by course description, and that's
Clarity on your definition of course mapping.
So you have some set of classes, say for example in high school. There's a purpose behind each one of those classes tied to that graduate.
Have you heard the term like a pathway, your course sequence, your sequence of courses, is that along the same lines of what you're describing?
Probably part of what education needs to be.
Or are you talking more of an alignment of courses with?
It's both.
Yeah,
I mean, I've heard the
Pathways.
pathways and those things, right? So again, that's why I'm using it. I don't know that we collectively understand the progression of the courses that are offered, why they're offered, their pathways, et cetera.
Or which courses are considered electives, and
And tie it back to, we had a discussion before, I like
Just treat you like ninth grade parent, right?
because I've actually had a discussion before about and bring in the perspective of what our charter says is number of credits, and how many we require, and how many we offer, and then which ones are really required, and are we using the best use of those resources against the credits, or do we need to look at cutting the credits because we're not delivering the core because we've marginalized our people? I mean, it's that holistic look at what we offer, what it takes to offer it, what it takes to develop it, so we can then say what changes. When you recommend a change, we understand why you do it.
And are we doing this at a round table, or are we doing this at the next board meeting?
I don't think you can do it.
yeah, I think a round table. I mean, and then maybe it's just whomever is interested could come. Hopefully it would be most of the board. But then, maybe we don't have the same time constraints of having to get through the rest of the agenda. We're just focus on that. All right, so board development.
Just briefly, I sent an email to you and to Susan today about getting a letter signed by both of you to submit to the Office of Charter Schools along with the revised bylaws.
Right.
So any changes you need to make to that, I just need to get it on letterhead and I can get everything submitted to the Office of Charter Schools. And when I communicate with them, they can
business.